glad you've tuned back in here at musicmoose.org, and we've been spending a little time here in the last lesson or two focusing on some blues, and we had left off with the slow blues in E and really emphasizing the seventh chords over the E and the A and the B. And I'm just going to explain a little more on some of that slow rhythm and some of these riffs. Okay, so if we get this slow blues rhythm going, it's in a 4/4 time. It's just kind of a slower tempo. If we take a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, into the A. A7. E7 and B7 or B9, A7, E. There's a little turnaround there. Okay, so some of you may be wondering some of these seventh shapes here. You keep seeing this little turnaround that I'm doing, these riffs, and I had mentioned this E7. Well, if you took this down a whole step to the D, right, and we're familiar with the regular D, straight D shape. If I was to make that D7, okay, you've got this particular triad here. That's voicing the seventh note of the chord. Now, of course, if I move that up a whole step, I've got an E7 there. So basically this triad, what I'm doing here in this blues riff, it's probably a riff you've heard thousands of times in your musical listening adventures. It's a pretty simple riff there from the E7. And kind of like we had explained earlier in the cross-picking rolls type of lesson, basically sometimes I'm doing a little rake down, a strum down on that triad, and then sometimes I'm almost doing like a little roll with the kind of a thing. E7. So now if I was to take that and do it over the A, our straight A chord there, if I made this A note a G, okay, we've got that A7. Now, that looks a little different from the E7, okay, because we've got a different chord shape going here. If I was to take my A chord and play it up here, the 7th fret root on the 4th string, now if I made this an A7, I could apply my G note right there. Or just like with the E7, I'm going to walk that up to, okay, so there's my A7. Well, we have A right there just like this D shape, so just like we just showed you, we make that A7. Now if I move that up to the B shape, and made it a B7, that would make my higher B7 triad right there at the 11th fret. You've got that little B7, same kind of walk down right there. And also you saw me do it a little earlier out of this B7, B9 shape where I was walking it up. Same kind of pattern, just moved over to one string. So instead of playing it off of my higher strings, you can see I'm playing it from the the 4th string and the 2nd string. So you can see a couple different examples of those 7th triad shapes over each chord, your dominant 7th blues type of shape. And like I've been mentioning all along, we're hoping that you have downloaded some chord charts or found a book to go along with these lessons so you can expand your knowledge of chord shapes. And you know, as I've been saying all along, it all ties in. The chord shapes, the inversions, the scales, the riffs, the phrasings, it all comes together, and the more you learn where all your starting and ending points are, your root notes, it all seems to tie together. And you know, I keep repeating about walking it up a half a step, do it in the next chord, do it in the next chord, or find your favorite keys and work it out like that. It doesn't all have to be G, C, and D, or A, D, and E. You know, you can pick out these patterns in every key, because the more you start playing and the more people you play with, you'll find some people like to play in different keys than you do, and you know, it's just another thing you want to learn. So I hope I broke this down a little bit more in depth and shed a little light on that. Sometimes I might whip through a few things without going in depth, but like we've mentioned, feel free to email us, chime in on the forums, and we'll answer these questions. Be happy to do that for you. And keep playing the blues.